Imagine you go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, and the employees, they force you to eat only their favorite food. So when a woman refuses to have sex with a man and he forces himself on her anyway, it's considered rape. So this is when you went to the buffet and you were forced to eat the employee's favorite food at the restaurant. So what if these people were married? So let's say the employees of the buffet start coming to your home and forcing you to eat their favorite food there. And that's all they would let you eat. This is what sexual abuse in marriage is like. The relationship doesn't change what it is. It's still rape. So what if you had a friend whose husband made her feel guilty for not wanting sex? Or a friend who was sound asleep when her husband helped himself to her body? What if you had a friend whose husband gets cranky without sex, then takes it out on her and the kids? So she has sex with him to protect herself and the kids. What if you had a friend whose husband blames his pornography use on her refusing to have sex? She feels guilty and responsible, so she has sex with him anyways. I have friends like this. Sexual abuse happens in marriage all the time. It's time to recognize it and call it what it is: sexual abuse. For centuries, society has held a strong belief that it is a woman's responsibility to have sex with her husband. In recent decades, this view has changed a bit, but society is still holding on to that old belief. So what is considered sexual abuse? What do our church leaders have to say about it? What can we do so our children don't experience the same things? So this is what I'm here to tell you about. How can we change this wrong belief? So in 1998, a study was done, and it was the researcher was looking for literature on sexual assault in marriage. She's found tons of literature about child abuse and physical violence against women, and she found stuff on sexual assault by strangers, but she wasn't finding anything about sexual violence between intimates. The laws relating to rape in most of the states of this nation and in most countries around the world, according to one study she found, include what is commonly referred to as the marital rape exemption. These laws usually define rape as the forcible penetration of the body of a woman, not the wife of the perpetrator. And so according to them, rape in marriage is legal impossibility. So the ones who did this study, they argued convincingly that the marriage license was historically perceived as a license to rape. So what does society believe now? Married victims of sexual abuse still faced considerable stigma when coming forward with their sexually abusive relationship, according to the Power of Two Marriage.com. Sexual abuse includes unwanted sex, withholding sex, forced engagement in any sexual activity that frightens or hurts you, refusing to practice safe sex, or preventing you from using birth control or making decisions about pregnancy and abortion. So what do the experts say about sexual abuse in marriage? So when I was searching for sources for this on this topic for sexual abuse in marriage, I wasn't finding very much. And then I came across this article that called it wife rape. And so I changed it to wife rape. And that kind of changes how you look at it, because it is rape. So coercion is one way of being sexually abused. So according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline's website, they ask, have you ever felt pressured by your partner to have sex? Have you ever felt guilted into it? Or felt like you weren't able to say no? Abuse is often centered on power and control in all aspects of the relationship, so it's not uncommon that an abusive partner will try to force intimacy. So what is actually consent? We talk about consent a lot. So what is it really? First, we need to change how we think about consent. According to the Domestic Violence Hotline, the old idea of no means no is not a good approach. It puts the responsibility on one person to resist or accept, and makes it consent about what a partner doesn't want instead of what they do want. So what does this societal belief teach our children? It teaches that sex is a need. Well, sex is a need for procreation, to have children. But people live without sex all the time. Look at monks, look at nuns. They live without sex. It also teaches our children that wives are sex slaves. And this is what we need to undo. So what is really happening in marriages? What do our church leaders have to say about it? So in most cases of stranger rape, according to one study, sexual assault consists of a time-limited incident. So it's one time. Conversely, research has shown that women raped in marriage are 10 times more likely to sustain multiple sexual assaults than are women raped by a stranger. That's 10 times more likely. So what are the statistics? There really aren't very many strong statistics on it. According to Ontario law, as of October 2014, only 2 surveys had ever been done to try and gather statistics on marital rape. Women with religious backgrounds were more likely to accept marital rape because of a fear of a spouse committing adultery or being cast as a sinner from a resulting divorce. According to these studies, of women who are raped in a marriage, 69% of them are raped more than one time. Only 3.2% of women who are raped by someone that they know report the rape to the police. That's why there aren't very many statistics. So what does the church teach us about sex and marriage? According to the Family Proclamation, it says, "We warn that individuals who violate covenants of chastity, who abuse spouse or offspring, or who fail to fulfill family responsibilities will one day stand accountable before God. Further, we warn that the disintegration of the family will bring upon individuals, communities, and nations the calamities foretold by ancient and modern prophets." The church teaches us that any abuse in marriage or in any family or any abuse at all is wrong. And according to the Marriage and Family Relations Manual, sexual abuse may be either emotional or physical. It includes sexual harassment, inflicting pain using force or intimidation, and persisting in doing things during times of intimacy that are unpleasant or displeasing to the other. So what are some things that we can do to change this belief? We can teach our children and others what mutual consent really means. Consent is ongoing. Both partners should keep giving and looking for consent. Consent is not a free pass. Saying yes to one act doesn't mean you have to consent to other acts. Your relationship status does not make consent automatic. If you're married to someone, friends with someone, or dating someone, it doesn't mean they own your consent by default. There's no such thing as implied consent. The absence of a no does not equal a yes. It's not consent if you're afraid to say no. It's not consent if you're being manipulated, pressured, or threatened to say yes. It's also not consent if you or a partner is unable to legitimately give consent, which includes being asleep, unconscious, under the influence of conscious-altering substances, or not able to understand what you're saying yes to. So, what are some things that we should look for to know if there is sexual abuse involved? So if you are in a relationship and the person you're with makes you feel like you owe them because, you're in a relationship, you've had sex before, they spent money on you or bought you a gift. If they give you compliments that sound extreme or insincere as an attempt to get you to agree to something. If they give you drugs and alcohol to loosen up your inhibitions. If they play on the fact that you're in a relationship, saying things such as, "Sex is a way to prove you love me. You're loved for me. If I don't get sex from you, I'll get it somewhere else." If they react negatively with sadness, anger, or resentment if you say no or don't immediately agree to something. If they continue to pressure you after you say no. If they make you feel threatened or afraid of what might happen if you say no. Or if they try to normalize your sexual expectations. "I need it. I'm a man." Those are some of the things that we look for sexual abuse. Those are signs of sexual abuse. what should we be teaching our children about sex? So, President Spencer W. Kimball said the union of the sexes between husband and wife, and only husband and wife, was for the principal purpose of bringing children into the world. Sexual experiences were never intended by the Lord to be a mere plaything or merely to satisfy passions and lusts. Elder David A. Bednar, he said, the power of procreation is spiritually significant. Misuse of this power subverts the purposes of the Father's plan and of our mortal existence. And Elder Holland says, the body is an essential part of the soul. This distinctive and very important Latter-day Saint doctrine underscores why sexual sin is so serious. We declare that one who uses the God-given body of another without divine sanction abuses the very soul of that individual, abuses the central purpose and processes of life, the very key to life, as President Boyd K. Packer once called it. In exploiting the body of another, which means exploiting his or her soul, one desecrates the atonement of Christ, which saved that soul and which makes possible the gift of eternal life. It's time to put a stop to this. It's time to stop the continuation of this false belief that a wife is a man's sex toy, to use whenever he pleases, no matter how she feels. It's time to stop the marital rape exemption belief. Let's stop the cycle now.